Part of being an effects artist is to iterate a lot over the visual of the final results. Once you build various effects layers, especially if it's magical, if it's sci-fi, or things that require a lot of transparency and particles and glow and things like that, there's a lot of things that needs to happen in comp to create the final look. And part of being an effects artist is to have a capability and access to one of these tool sets, whether it's Fusion, Nuke, or DaVinci, or After Effects, anything that allows you to comp A over B, do some color correction, add some glows, and do a render. Now, we're going to have a dedicated Nuke workshop, so I'm not gonna, I don't expect you guys to fully master this part, but it's very, very important to understand that Nuke is a very important piece of the puzzle in building complex visuals. And I'm going to show my workflow and how much I rely on it. As well as doing the final composite is testing and iterating over the visual. And this means that I will start doing some renders and then set up a bunch of AUVs and multiple lights, light AUVs, and then relight it in comp. So separate the AUVs and then relight it in comp to find and quickly fine tune each light intensity and color and see what works best. Sometimes I even render out white light with one intensity across all of them, and then just name them at different AUVs, import them into Nuke, separate everything, and then comp to find something that I like, and then I go back and reapply the results back into Houdini and have that in the final render. Now I'm going to show, before I dive into the final composite, and this is a simplified version of the final shot that I'm going to briefly go through. Before I do this, I want to show an iterative state of me testing various things. So while working on this, I'm still not certain how it's going to work, how it's going to look like. So I need, because I don't have previs, I don't have a storyboard, I don't have any of that. I have to test things myself. So here I go and just use the segment for destruction and try to render everything together. Separate the smoke, 2 passes, one for everything and one for smoke only. And then I import them into Nuke and start working on the various passes, separate the lights again and try to tweak them. And this is a top render that I don't think I rendered this, and I separated the various AUVs. You can see them here, each one for each light. So I have the orange, I have the blue, I have a top light, I have an indirect pass, I have an environment light which is very dim, and I just separate everything and try to recomp it to make it look interesting and see if it works visually. And then, okay, this part I like, I'm going to continue exploring this. So I add the smoke, and then it feels very, very weak. I don't like the smoke. I don't like how the overall look of it. So I start looking at adding atmospheres, which helps with selling the scale of the entire scene. So I do that, I add it, and then I kept on iterating this. Okay, it works from this angle, I like it, it works in this frame, and so on and so forth. I continue exploring. So this is a different camera to see how it's gonna work. And I can see I have atmosphere here with just one light. It's simpler, no mountains, no ground, and actually I didn't have them at that time. I was just working on this part, and to me it looks like it's gonna work. Like, I really like what I have here, but if I look at the initial render, it's pretty basic. This is what I have, and then I comp that stuff to make it look more interesting, rebalance everything, and just continue on that path. This segment was quick to render. I could run it overnight and come back tomorrow and it's ready. And so I continued exploring all this, and then I added some more ground. This is where I started working on the outer layer. I didn't have it at that time, but I was sure that I'm going to be able to blend it in nicely. So I added that part, which I changed in the final version, as you guys saw. And this is the different version with the atmosphere. So having access to Nuke like this is very, very powerful, and it allows you to test things and improve the visual and see whether it's going to work or not. And then from this, I went back to Nuke. Okay, I'm certain now everything is going to be fine. It's going to work. My visual is going to look nice. Let's refine everything. So I went back to Houdini, worked on the terrain, worked on the shaders again, worked on the lights again, make sure that everything is well balanced, everything looks nice, tweak the settings and the various AVs. And here again, I still have another stage of exploring, which I'll talk about later, but we have more elements here. We have the sparks, we have the lightning of the ship, we have the ship. And by that time, I figured out how I'm going to solve and render all the passes. So this is my main pass, which is what I ended up doing. I did a comp trick that I will explain once we get to week 8 to give me this underneath fire feeling. You can see that all these cracks, they feel like they're burning, even though I don't have fire yet. So that's all fake in comp. And this is the original render. Now, it looks basic, but it actually has a lot of AVs that will allow me to improve the visual. And I don't want to overcomplicate this yet, but this is the raw render, and this is after tweaking. Okay? Not a huge difference, but it's very crucial. Okay, this is the blue, so the blue bolts. And for the sparks, for the magical, this is the render. That's it. And then comp stuff to make it look like this. Cool. So then I have the smoke. So let's go to a different frame. And everything is rendered together. So all smoke is one pass. And then after tweaks, it looks like this. Now I did a trick. This is how the smoke looks like, okay? Not this version. This is how the smoke looks like. I'll explain why it's exposed like this later. So this is the raw render, and this is after tweaking. It's not a major difference, but it makes quite a bit of difference to have these lights tweaked and get the proper rims and stuff like that, and this overexposed area and the fire and all that stuff. It's very important. These small tweaks are what sells and combines the visual nicely. Okay, so then I have the ship's blue effect, the illumination effect added on top, and then everything together combined. And it looks like the ship is not there, so let's see where it's coming from. Yeah, so that's the ship. And then I have the sparks, which is a separate pass. So this one, you see, I ended up not, the smoke is not abstracting any of it. Okay, so the sparks are visible no matter what the smoke density is. This bit is always visible. But I did something in comp to fix some of that. We'll talk about it when we get there. Just this is a separate pass, and it allows me to, control it, tune it down, remove it if I wanted to, because it's not embedded. I can still, only if I get comment on this, I can go back and work on my sparks forever and render it. It will be super fast, no cost. But if it was integrated in the smoke pass or on the geometry pass, it would be a nightmare to re-render because it's going to be very expensive. Cool, so that's all combined. Geo, smoke, and so let's put a dot here. So this is the geo, this is the smoke, everything combined, and then with the sparks added, and then I have my atmosphere. So this is my Atmo pass. It looks like this. All the lights included, but I separate them as individual lights, and then that allows me to tweak my volumetric in any way I want. And I did tweak it a lot to get the effect that I want. And then some fake glow from the fire, we'll talk about that. And you can see this light here. I carefully animated this light. This is the strong orange light in the center. It's outside the frustum, but it's still affecting. We're still getting this. It's actually very weak. If we look at the render, it's not visible. If you look at this, it's not very visible. It is very visible, but it's not how I wanted it to be. So I was animating the value of this light to give me the effect that it's, when it's aligned along the camera, it's actually brighter. When it's away from the camera, it's less intense, or vice versa. So it looks like when you look at something, it glares, but when you look at it from a different angle, it fades off. So that's the effect I was looking for. And then I have the lightning, which is a separate pass. And this is, where is my lightning? Okay, so this is a very basic curve, just using a carve node with a noise on it, and it just shows up for a few frames. It does this, and then boom, that's it. And all the trick is happening in comp. So all these effects are happening in comp. And then I added that on top. So this is one frame. There's also lighting with this, so if I gain it up, you will see that the lightning is actually illuminating. So that's something I wanted to add, but it's not very visible in the final version. And then with this, I have a couple of other distortion effect and chroma, just to make it, just to sell the idea that this is very bright, so it changes the entire camera. And I animated some stuff, so the effect is much stronger when the lightning happens, and then it's off, and then we have the rest of the shot. So that's it. I'm gonna do this quickly. I'm gonna copy this, this, and this, and this. I'm gonna paste them here. So these are the main passes. That's it. This is my main. I'm gonna comp it. And this is my B. And I'm gonna reformat to make sure that everything is the same. Go 720. And let's find the frame where the bolt is, the effect is there. Okay. So I'm going to use a plus for these two. And then we have the smoke. And the smoke is quite bright, so we need to tune it down. So I'm going to use a grade, just lower its intensity. And this is an over. So that's our smoke. Let's go to a different frame like that. And then our atmosphere. So I'm going to use a grade and also tune it down. And I'm going to merge it. For now, I'm going to use a plus. Later, we'll take a look at something else. Okay, so that's the Atmo. And then we have the sparks, which I'm going to add here. And this is going to be a plus. Okay, so this is the original render, and this is the final comp. So original, final, and let's reformat this as well. And that's what you can do in comp. And let's go here. Cool. I hope you guys find this useful, and we'll provide enough training for this. We'll build the comp from scratch so that everybody understands what I was doing and why I was doing it, and hopefully you guys will be able to use this knowledge. Thank you so much for watching this, and talk to you soon. Bye bye.